The John Sterling Show.
Entertaining and informative.
On the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Okay, we are back, and we have a terrific guest lined up. First, I want to read this from actually the papers of the Boston Globe. Boston Globe sports columnist Dan Shaughnessy was inducted into the National Sports Media Association's Hall of Fame on Monday at a ceremony in Greensboro, North Carolina. Shaughnessy became the 8th member of the Globe sports staff to be inducted into NSMA's Hall of Fame, the most of any newspaper. I'm going to read you the names. No wonder I love the Boston Globe. Jackie McMullen, Leslie Gisser, Bob Ryan, Peter Gammons, Lee Montville, Will McDonough, and Bud Collins, with whom I did actually play tennis once. A terrific guy. Well, Danny, that's an impressive list of names.
Well, thank you, John. Nice to be here. And, yeah, I was very blessed to grow up reading a lot of those guys and then have them as teammates. Most of us were all there together in the 1980s, and I'm still clinging to it. You know what it's like to work into your later years, still doing the job, so that's what I'm doing.
Yeah. Well, you're young. I'm going to keep on. I'm doing a kid at Jack O'Connell. I'm doing this 1-hour show 1 day a week, which I think is about my speed. So anyway, one reason, there are many reasons. One reason I have a subscription to the Boston Globe, I think that and the New York Post sports sections are the two best sports sections I've read. And I love to read, so I get a chance to read Dan a whole lot. Well, one thing is happening in Boston, and you're never shy about giving your opinions, but all of a sudden, out of the blue, the Boston Red Sox are in the pennant race.
Yeah, this is unexpected for the Sox to be. I mean, they played so poorly for a couple months, and as we speak, they're in the second inning of a game where they're attempting to win their 9th straight game. Crochet is starting today. He's one of the best pitchers in the American League this year, so they got a shot to win 9 straight going into the final day before the break, and they're finally, 5 or 6 games over 500. It's the longest winning streaks in 4 years, and kind of nice to see them finally achieving what we thought they were going to be in spring training. I mean, it was a rare year. There was optimism about them coming in, and then they fell flat and played very poorly the first 2-3 months.
Well, I think what's amazing, and you can pat Alex Cora on the back, they've been without Bregman, and then they traded away in that odd deal Rafael Devers, and it looks like Cora is using just spare parts, getting up from the minor leagues. The kids have come up, and I think he's done a fabulous job. What are your thoughts?
No, it's true. Some of the lineups are very curious. I mean, Abraham Toro's hitting third on a regular basis. A guy named Rami Gonzalez. They got Navarez, the catcher they got from the Yanks, has played very well. He's been the regular cleanup hitter. So it's just not the thumper kind of lineup that we're used to seeing in Boston. But it's been effective. And John, they were we know there's a lot of bad teams in baseball. There's a lot of mediocrity in baseball, but a couple of real bad ones. And the Sox came up against the Nationals in D.C. last weekend, who looked to me like they were quitting. It was so bad that they fired their manager and general manager before the Red Sox got out of town after a 3-game sweep. It was just a complete rollover. And then the Sox got Colorado after that, which is playing on a pace that could be the worst team in 125 years. So that gave them the first 6, which was, nice. And then they've beaten the Rays in 2 straight, really thrilling 1-run games coming into this afternoon. So playing better competition now, still winning.
Well, and Tampa is the team that they have now passed. Now, the Yankees lost today, so the Red Sox are only 3 back on the loss side of the Yanks. And they're playing Tampa, and Tampa has now lost as many games as Boston. So the Red Sox have come up a long way. Is the league great? No, not at all. And that includes the teams in our division.
Right.
But, you only can play who you're scheduled to play.
For sure. And they, like I said, it's still not easy to win 6 games in a row, and even when you're playing Washington and Colorado. That it did help to have that competition, but to see him playing well, carry it forward against Tampa is nice. And one-run games have been a problem for them. So, again, it's just a better demonstration. A lot of things coming together for them right now. Like you said, getting Bregman back, some of the good young talent they have. This kid Raphael has been on fire. Game-winning walk-off home run last night. Anthony looks like the real deal right up from the minors. Story's finally playing like the guy they thought they were getting 4 years ago. And they've just got, better starting pitching and better lineup depth than we thought.
Dan, can you enlighten us about the whole Rafael Devers situation? Why did it happen? Did it begin early in spring training? And what was the reason that they dealt him away? Well,
I mean, everybody's got different histories on this one. And he's been 8-9 years a very, very good hitter. And anyone who watches the Yanks knows this because he has just been a Yankee killer. And going back to when he turned around Chapman throwing 101 like 8 or 9 years ago. So he's been that guy and just, a really a way above average hitter. And third baseman, he was not the worst, but he was insufficient. So this year they brought in Bregman, which is an upgrade defensively at that position in a big way. And they asked Devers to DH. He didn't want to do it. They finally cajoled him into doing it. And then right away, with their first baseman, Casas got hurt. And they asked him about playing first, and he said no. And I'm not a fan of that. I mean, you're on a team. He's making a huge amount of money, 10-year contract, $330 million. You got to do what they ask you to do. And he said no. So the owner flew out to Kansas City to try and talk to him, and he just wasn't having it. And there's really no excuse for that. So it's indefensible, and he did that. But what the team did was kind of curious too. They basically gave him away just to get out from under the contract, which I'm never a fan of as a baseball fan. I want to see some return when you trade an asset like that, even when he is misbehaving or not doing what he's told. I just thought Boston came away with no help for this year, and they got out from under a $300 million payroll obligation, which is great for the owner, but fans don't get dividends on that. And I just thought, regardless of how he's pouting or underperforming, he was their best hitter at the time they dealt him. And because they're playing the bad teams, they've been able to overcome that. But I still think when you deal a guy like that, you better get something that'll help your team. They did not do that. So I was not a fan of the deal and still not. But they are winning, so everybody's happy here right now.
Well, I certainly agree with you about Devers. I look out for the players. I'm on the players' side all the time. But there isn't any reason why he wouldn't play first base. And there wouldn't any reason why he wouldn't DH. As you say, he's already hit it. He's making phenomenal money. He'll never have to work, a day in his life once he starts playing baseball. So I agree with you there. And I really don't understand. Of course, they wanted to get rid of all that money. Why they let him go for, no one? Why did they let Mookie Betts go? Look what they got back from Mookie Betts. It's disgraceful.
Yeah, the Betts thing was just they were not willing to compete for his services, and they got, three players that, Verdugo was one. You got to look at him for a year. Connor Wong, who's knocked in one run this year, and the other guy, Jeter Downs, is out of baseball. So they got really zero in return for Betts and got out from under the obligation to pay him. And when you're the Boston Red Sox, you got to pay the best players, and that deal will never be forgivable in my view. It's a big market team refusing, not competing for the services of a player. That's the cost of doing business. And he's produced, as we know, he's won 2 World Series. He's been top 5 MVP guy and his team guy who does play a million positions over there. He's going to the Hall of Fame. So that's one that fans really regret, and ownership. It troubles me when I see them do that. But that's sort of a bad tone back in 2020. And since then, they've finished last 3 times and played 500 ball for coming on 5-6 years. So unacceptable for the Boston Red Sox.
Yes, really, because, Mookie Betts is a Hall of Fame player. You can look at him, and just by looking at him, you can see he can do everything, that he has such athleticism, whether he's fielding or hitting or running. Anyway, Dan Shaughnessy wrote a great column. It was a couple of months ago. And Danny, it's when you appointed yourself as the commissioner of sports. and how you would change things. So I sent it to Susan, and she called back and said, I agree with everything he said. So we're going to talk about that in just a moment. We have to hit a break and, pay some bills.
Sure.
And this is, as you well know, the 77 WABC ActionCarting.com phone line. New York City's premier waste and recycling provider. Back with Dan Shaughnessy in a moment here on 77 WABC.
The John Sterling Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The John Sterling Show.
Entertaining and informative.
On the Red Apple Podcast Network.
And we're talking to the outstanding columnist of the Boston Globe, Dan Shaughnessy. Before I go on to the column, which I adored, I hope you can remember some of it. But one thing about the Boston Globe, I'm a newspaper guy. I love newspapers. In fact, Danny, I was in a cab in Boston several years ago. This is not the last couple of years. The years go by me. I have no idea how long, 4, 5, 6 years ago. And I always bring reading material wherever I go. And so I'm in the back of this cab and I'm reading a newspaper, and we get to a light, and this cab driver turns around and he says, we're outdated. And I said, what do you mean? He said, we're the last people to read a newspaper.
Yeah.
But the Boston Globe is doing as good as ever. Is that true?
Well, I don't think any paper is doing, as good as ever. We're closer to what we were 20 years ago than most publications, and I appreciate what you said about us in the New York Post, because I would concur with that, John. I think the two papers that are still kind of covering things, traveling, throwing multiple bodies at stories, I think the Post and the Globe are the two that are closer to what they were 20, 30, 40 years ago when it was, everybody was competing really hard. That's kind of gone away. It's evolved. I understand things change. It's not my cup of tea, but that's the way things evolve. We still have other platforms the young people get their information on, but the old days of the paper have faded, and it's just a very small group of older people that read the daily printed products. So I'm one of them. You're one of them, and those were great days. But I appreciate what you said about the Globe, and I miss those days, and I feel like we got to do it when it was really the pinnacle. I remember being in New York covering the '77 World Series, and just being so thrilled with all of when Newsday came into the city. It was a big deal. You could get Newsday finally, and having the Post and the Daily News and the Times and Newsday, just going down and getting all four at the train station every day. I'm just like you, John. That's what I do when I travel. Well,
two things. I hope I don't forget them. When I grew up, there were 6 newspapers in New York.
Sure.
Oh, would I wish there were 6? Oh, that would be great. And by the way, I would attempt anyway every day to read them both. And Danny, I sleep late, and I'll get up and drive somewhere for brunch, and I take the newspapers with me. And know what? It's as favorite a part of the day as I have. I sit there stuffing my face and reading sports. How can it be better than that?
Well, I'm with you, John. I get up early. You're lucky. You're a blessed guy. I can sleep late. I can't do that. But I get up, I go down to 711 Oak Square, Brighton, and I pick up the New York Times, Daily News Post, Boston Herald, Boston Globe, USA Today, and Wall Street Journal. That's 7 newspapers, and I bring them home, and I enjoy my morning with that. So we're doing the same thing, and 200 miles apart.
Yes, indeed. Now, what do you remember as commissioner of sports?
Oh boy, that was a while ago. I know that the things that people we all look back and. Just things like this year's All-Star game, for instance. Are they going to just wear their home uniforms, or are they still going to have All-Star uniforms? I mean, that the kinds of things that don't make it better. We're the old guys baying at the moon. I understand that, but I'm watching the Red Sox on TV right now. They're wearing their City Connect yellow uniforms. There's no red on the entire Red Sox uniform today, or when they wear their green ones. And it's all about merch and selling merch, but I like the Yankees should never get away from the tuxedo home white they have. Same with the Detroit Tigers. Same with the Boston Red Sox. So, and the Celtics, you can't see the Celtics in their home whites anymore. It's always some combo or black or dark green or no. Home team wears white. Visiting team wears their colors. End of story. So that's the kind of thing. You know, it's an easy old guy take when you get into that. But yes, I am of that. And I mean, John, we could go all day. You know, we want pitchers to throw complete games. Things that aren't going to happen again. We want people to move the runner over, shorten up the 2 strikes. Just so many things that have just been phased out of the game, and it's not for the better in my view.
Well, it's like you're reading my mind. I'm getting scared. I think everything. You know, one thing that Danny said that you'll get a kick out of, because I think everyone sees this. He said, when a guy misses a foul shot, there will be there'll be no more congratulating. He missed.
That's a weird one. Yeah, everybody's compelled to go, high five, dap, whatever they're doing after the miss. No, wait till you make it on that one, John. They're changing a rule in basketball to incentivize the heave at the end of the quarter. Guys won't do it because it suppresses their shooting percentage.
Right.
Even though it helps the team, that you might hit 1 out of 20, but no, it makes their percentage go down. So they've had to change the rule, and they're working on this in the summer league, and I expect it to be part of the NBA moving forward. It's a team shot. So when you take that heave at 1 second left at the half from half court, then it doesn't count as an 0 for 1 for you. It's 0 for 1 for the team. Oh. So I mean, how pathetic is that they have to legislate players to do what they should do to help the team, but won't do because it's hurting their 3-point percentage.
And they're making in the millions.
Oh, my God. So there's 12 guys making $50 million a year in the NBA this year.
Isn't that amazing? Isn't that amazing? And, Dan, how do franchises like Portland, I guess New Orleans, but the small franchises, Oklahoma City just won the championship, they're going to give Shea $60-70 million a year. Anyway, how do they afford it?
The TV deals are pretty good. The social media has given them new income streams. Obviously, the gambling partnerships, et cetera. Because I mean, when these teams, the capital gains on franchises. I mean, the Celtics were purchased for $330 million and just sold for $6.7 billion, whatever it was, and the Lakers went for $11 billion. So the capital gains are always there when you own franchises. They don't go backwards. Working year to year, you look at some of the stuff that you just cited, and it's hard to imagine how you operate in the black on a year-to-year basis, as good as the TV deals may be, et cetera. It's regular season NBA is not really for me, but the young people seem to support it, and tickets are, as we know, out of sight, and people are there. So go figure.
Well, you saw a good player who had his best year, Frank Cornett, and he's a backup and a banger, and I forget the team. You'll be able to tell me. He just signed a contract. He left Boston. He had a good year. He capitalized on it, which he should do. And here's a guy who's, basically a backup. I think he's making $15 million a year.
Yeah, that's sort of the cost of doing business in the NBA. I mean, the Celtics, they've been gutted really because of the second apron and all the penalties that are paid for the high payroll, that they were not operating in the black on a year-to-year basis, and new ownership doesn't plan to foot that bill. So they were forced. They traded Porzingis to Atlanta. They traded Drew Holiday to Portland, which he wasn't happy about. Luke Cornett, as you say, signed as a free agent. Horford's not going to come back. And we've seen, and Tatum, rolled his Achilles in the finals against the Knicks. So they're down 5 or 6 of their rotation right out of the gate. So the team is gutted, and they've gone to the big middle of the Eastern Conference.
I'm glad you corrected me. I don't know why I said Frank Cornett, Luke Cornett.
What's the difference? Luke Frank, he's just another big white guy.
and he's making, I'm telling you, I'm amazed.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, yes, more than that. What do you think of the Celtics? First of all, I want to hit you with this. I've seen this a lot. You know why Boston lost those 2 games to New York at the Garden? Because they did nothing but take threes and miss them, and that allowed. Right. Oh, it kills me when you see a guy pass up a layup, drill it outside, and have the guy miss the shot. And I think that's why Boston lost those 2 games.
Yeah, the analytics people have convinced them. The percentages say if you can take all threes and you make a smaller percentage, you still score more points. So that's the motivation. Unless they have a fast break layup, it's pretty much just kick it back out for the 3. Boston will take 50, 60 a game. They led the NBA with the record threes this year, and as you say, they went down with that. The 3, in my view, should be the last resort, and when nothing else works. And when you have a better team, don't take threes because you can have the night where you miss, and it happened to them twice. They blew 20-point leads twice against the Knicks, lost 2 home games, and that was the series. When you have the better team, play basketball, give and go, pick and roll. Do things to match up and take advantage of your superior roster, which they had against the Knicks, and they squandered that by taking all threes and missing them.
And also, when the other team is coming back, if you get 2s, that will really stop their comeback.
Yep.
I saw a game this year. Minnesota was at Oklahoma City, and they were down by 20 going to the last quarter, and Chris Finch, the coach of Minnesota, made a decision. He put 2 men on Shea out on the court, not waiting for him to put the ball on the floor.
Yeah.
2 guys. Okay. And so the ball is then thrown around. They have an extra guy, and they took 3s. And they missed every 3. Minnesota caught him at the buzzer and won in overtime. So, but of course, us talking like this is like 2 old guys in the park.
It is.
They're not, the Yankees don't bunt runners over. Susan and I kidded when they put that Manfred man rule in, the ghost runner.
Yeah.
You figure it wouldn't go past 10 innings because you bunt them over and somehow you get them in. But they don't do that.
Yeah, it's been interesting with the ghost runner, and I'm glad they don't do it in the postseason.
In fact, Susan told me this. Remember there was a game, Danny, a few years ago, I think Seattle, it wasn't Seattle, it was Cleveland and Tampa, and they may have gone 12 or 13 innings. And in one of the breaks between the innings, Tito Francona yelled across to Kevin Cash. He said, "Hey, Cashy, you want to put a runner on second?" And that was in the playoffs where they don't use that.
He loves the tease. He loves to tease Kevin Cash. That's always been a big thing with them.
Well, it's odd that things like that bother us. You think they bother people like Core and Boone? I mean, they were brought up in their families with baseball.
Yeah, I see those guys. They've sort of adapted, and they know they have to. If you don't adapt, you go away. And with today's players, they're coddled and they're spoiled, and you can't, no more tough love with them. And so you don't see, no more Dallas Green walking in just ripping the players. That's gone away. So everybody's too sensitive to that, so it doesn't fly anymore, and they're not used to it, and you just don't have it. So I think that in order to survive as long as Tito has and as Kevin Cash is going to, and Aaron Boone, they've adapted and kind of do things that their maybe father or grandfather wouldn't have done.
I would think. Dan, thank you very much for coming on. I would love you to come on soon again, so, I'll establish the lines of communication. Anyway, thank you very much, and it's a pleasure. I get the pleasure of reading you in the Globe. Thank you.
It's my honor to be on the radio with John Sterling. Take care, John. Have a good day. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Well, we have to get going, right? Upcoming, Vinny Madunio will be here with all of his brilliance, and I will see you next Saturday. Thanks to Eric Williams, Jonas Jackson, and Rich Raptabali. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks for listening to The John Sterling Show. You can hear The John Sterling Show Saturdays at 4 on 77 WABC. If you like the podcast, share it with your friends and listen anytime at WABCRadio.com and download the WABC Radio app. Hit that subscribe button on all major podcast platforms. Plus, follow WABC on social on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and X. See you next time for a new episode so you never have to wonder.
What the heck is going on here?